the more you're able to exercise that creative part of your brain, it can go into other areas of your life. That's a great thing. So you're used to coming up against a situation. Okay, let's look at it from a different angle. That's just part. It becomes part of your character, part of your personality, part of who you are.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Lessons to Legacy. I'm Voice of G, and of course, I'm joined once again by my father, Mr. Fabio Gomez. Today, we are covering creativity, and one of my favorite quotes from Albert Einstein is, "Creativity is just intelligence having fun." What do you think about creativity? What is creativity to you?
The idea of creativity is not just like an art and music. Obviously, it's in business and generating income and creating a legacy, financial, to make a small business into a big business, to franchise. So a lot of the creativity has to be able to create different avenues of growth. So I think that when you are creative in the arts, you're basing yourself on prior information. Like, let's say that you trained in classical music, but you want to transition to, let's say, jazz music. You listen to other jazz musicians, and you start creating from those that raw material. Start creating something new. So the creativity is applicable in so many different things. In your work life, in your business life, in your family life. Sometimes you have to be creative to keep your kids engaged in activities. Sometimes you have to be creative to go on a date with your wife or with your girlfriend. Being creative, thinking outside of the box, and creating something new. I think that's so important. What has been your personal experience in terms of creativity and how you've applied it in your life?
Yeah. So I've always, I think it's probably inherited, but I've always had a creative mind.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to creativity, it has to do a lot with like problem solving.
Yes.
So when I was in school, one of the great things about math, right, is that they always teach you, the formula or whatnot.
Yes.
And sometimes, I guess, for the bad side of things, I would try to go around the formula, and the teachers would always ask, "Well, show your work." So I'd show my work, and everything was wrong because I tried to find creative ways to go around get the same result
a different way.
Yeah, a different way, exactly. But I think that's one reason why I always excelled rather than math. I excelled with creative writing and literature, and whenever, for me at least, it was fun whenever there was an expository essay or some kind of narrative essay that it was, maybe my friends would be scratching their heads and trying to figure out what to write.
Yes.
All I needed was that prompt, and it would just take off. Now, where math, I guess, depends what kind of math you're doing, it can be a little bit more rigid.
Yeah, there's certain parameters you can't get out of.
Exactly. So I think, that's maybe I had more of a creative mind, so that's why we'll go into more creative thinking. But I loved art. I was never good at it. I'm not going to say I was Picasso or one of these great artists. But I remember painting or coloring. I probably would color outside the lines.
Yeah.
And maybe it's also part of that creative mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, at least in school, that was my experience. Always trying to solve problems, maybe not always not following the formula, but going outside that.
Same thing with me is I wanted to do, and I still to this day, I want to do things in a non-conventional.
Yes.
There's a conventional way of doing things, and which is fine. I don't see it as something rigid all the time, but to be able to sprinkle something different to it, add a different flavor to it, and everything that you do. And so the more you're able to exercise that creative part of your brain, it can go into other areas of your life. That's a great thing. So you're used to coming up against a situation and go, okay, let's look at it from a different angle. That's just it becomes part of your character, part of your personality, part of who you are. Not everyone accepts it because, again, some people thrive on structure. They're very, I won't say the word OCD, although I just said it, but there's people that they need to have that structure. And so I think that having a group setting where there's different people, but you have people that are creative and are able to enhance what is in front of them, it adds to a team, it adds to a family setting, and there's always someone that's creating new things. And so I think it's something huge, something super important to develop, because that's the other thing. Creativity can be stagnant. You don't make the effort to do things in a different way, and it could just sit there for years. And that could be for many, many reasons. But thankfully, in my life, and everything that I've done, I've tried to always be creative in the way just approaching people, be creative in different ways of doing that. Here we are. We're creating a podcast.
Yes.
So this is a new venture for us, and looking forward to having people just share our experiences and comment,
of course,
on the things subjects that we talk about.
How did you discover maybe some of your creative skills, whether it was painting or music? Yeah. How did you discover that, or did you just know?
I since I was a little kid. Okay, so this is in elementary. I think I'm talking about third grade, fourth grade. I had a little friend in elementary, and we would do our schoolwork, but anytime we would draw, and we would take turns drawing King Kong and Godzilla.
Okay.
This is a third, and I would draw King Kong, and I would give him my sheet, and then he would draw Godzilla. Then we would do it backwards, and it was like weeks and weeks and weeks like this. And so I just loved drawing and making it better and making it better. When I went to high school, I became very, very involved with painting and just the philosophy behind the art. I studied surrealism.
Okay.
One of the biggest artists in surrealism was Salvador Dali. So I read a biography by him. He's crazy, but the subject matter was very, very intriguing. And so he's an example for me of just taking something that he knows how to do very well, the technical part of painting faces and figures, but elevated it so much higher to symbolize things. So his paintings are all full of metaphors. There's a story behind the story type of thing, and him to be able to communicate that. So that's one of the things I learned. This is like high school going to college. At college, it took figure drawing, and painting. Started doing painting, acrylic painting in that era. Just loved that part of it. It's a disconnect from everything going around, and in that time I did all types of paint. And to this day, I paint different things. I experiment a lot. I haven't developed my own style yet, but that's part of the creativity, because you try different things to see where your channel is. Even in music, I didn't have the advantage of a lot of people out there. Had advantage that my parents were not really that tuned into paying anybody to help me do music. I started being a musician at church and learned how to play everything in the C scale, which is all the white keys. But there was a baby grand piano in the church, and I wanted to play that. So I had a little electric keyboard with a button I could change the scales of the song. So I could play the same thing, same patterns, but changing the transposing electronically. What I did was I learned how to play the same song in different scales, and I was able to eventually play on the piano. And yes, a lot of the stuff was conventional music I wanted to always adorn. And so one of the things I did was in the groups that I've been, I would let the main piano player play, but then what I would do is I would play violins. So it would be decorating around the song. Mm-hmm. It was beautiful. Loved it. Just decorating around the songs so that you had your main body of music, but then there would be a violin coming here, or an oboe coming in here, guitars coming here. I love decorating the things. And so that's how I developed the talent, the ability for music and things. And I still do it to this day. Still do my music. Most of it's like I like to mix orchestral music with house music, or I like to play around with a lot of funk, jazz themes, and that's where I thrive in creating the music. I know you've been doing a lot of in the past few years, a lot of sampling and trying out different rhythms, things for yourself and some of your artists that you collaborated with. Where have you found the most recently the source of creativity that kind of pops and go, oh, wow, let me try this?
Music is very tied to your life and your experiences. I'm very inspired by not just the Alchemist, Madlib, old school producers, but also even producers that are, give two shout outs to Doja Beats and also Marlin Records, two producers that can take like almost any sample and flip it their way. So that kind of inspires me to make it my own, right? But what I really enjoy is like that soulful, sound where it's like somebody, it could be gospel or it could be R&B, where they're singing at a certain pitch that I can never reach, but I can take that emotion and that raw energy and flip it into, maybe slow it down sometimes and add some drums to it. And it is trial and error. Yeah. But when there's nothing, I would say nothing compares to pressing the keyboard and you're trying to find the right tempo for the sample, and then it hits and you're like, all I need to do is add hi-hats or drums and it just kind of flows. Yeah. There's something special to it. Yes.
It's energy and it's kind of like a snowball effect.
Yes.
Once you hit the right beat, the right sound, the right rhythm, things start falling into place. And I think that's applied to a lot of any type of artistry. Yeah. And creativity where you get it's just those first, let's say 4 blocks of foundation. Once you have that, the next set is easier and it becomes easier. The next thing you know, you have a masterpiece. Right. Be it a business plan, be it a marketing plan, being a painting, being a track.
I record as well. I record hip hop as well. I write. And that also is a lot of trial and error. Sometimes you go into a studio session, you're 2 hours in, you get a bright idea, and that day you're like, this is perfect. Yeah. I'm going to lay this down right now. And you listen to it the next morning, you're like, what was I thinking? Yeah. So there's a little bit back and forth. Having the right engineer, having the right producer is always the best. Yeah. Even like going back to your business, like having the right people around you to make that business work, is very key. But I think completion is always the best thing, because you can't let it sit there, the idea sit there and just kind of pick up dust or whatnot. Because when you're in that creative energy, you're in that flow, you want to get it done right then and there, even if it takes an extra hour or so, because you might not get that feeling the next day. Yes. You might get busy. You might. Yeah.
Well, it's inspiration.
Exactly. Take advantage of the inspiration always.
Well, thank you so much for that question. Loved it. Hey, you guys, do you have, what's your creative flow? Where do you get your source of inspiration? Love to have you guys share what's important to you in terms of creating.
I definitely like and subscribe, comment below exactly what you might do when you have those creative juices flowing. Feel free to subscribe like we said, and of course like our Instagram and our YouTube and our TikTok as well.